It's me, Capri. My mommy is the best. Super Mom Robin. She helps mommies get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the show. Brush. Get ready for It's Super Slowly and Super Strong.
Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, sponsored by Supermom Robin Stoltman, where every week I feature different guests to empower you to become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or even thought of. If you are ever looking for a virtual assistant, I highly recommend Sphere Rocket to delegate any business-related tasks like grow your social medias, book appointments, and much more that all businesses require, boosting your sales, productivity, and much more. The link to Sphere Rocket is at the bottom of this episode, and this is Season 6, Episode number 41. And today I have my guest, Matt Lay, author of Manage Your Gaps and co-founder of Inflection Nexus Advisors. He specializes in helping leaders navigate the messy middle, those critical moments where what used to work doesn't. Whether it's scaling a team, redesigning culture, or clarifying what success even looks like anymore, he helps organizations reconnect people, process, and purpose. His work focuses on the three biggest blind spots in most businesses: the manager gap, the role, the management gap, the work, and the teamwork gap, the value. And today we are talking about Fulfillment ROI, the true measure of sustained success. Thank you so much, Matt, for being here with our audience.
Thanks, Robin. It's a pleasure, and that was a very generous and humbling introduction, so thank you.
Well, you are welcome. I am so excited that you are here because I know one of the top questions that I have had is, how is management different than micromanaging?
That's a great question. And the funny thing is, actually, when we get into it, we're going to find out what people label as micromanaging isn't always all bad. It's actually got a place and a time. And so to start off, what is management? Management is the process of helping people optimize and activate in the work that they're doing. And so that's helping we have a vision. That's what leadership is about. It's helping set a vision of orienting, where are we going? Management is all about making sure we activate, start doing that work, and we optimize so that we can sustain that momentum. Because we won't have any change, we won't have any progress if we don't keep things moving in the right direction. So how does that relate to micromanaging? Micromanaging, in the negative sense, is basically it's just not trusting your people. It's looking over their shoulder. It's either because you're not comfortable in your role, in your own skin, because someone hasn't told you what success looks like for you. And so you're looking over everyone's shoulder to make sure that what they're doing is okay, or you just don't trust the people around you. And so you're looking over their shoulder. The way that it's actually okay is there's a concept called situational leadership, which is to say, as people learn something, they go through kind of 4 phases. So you start out and it's all about kind of your level of excitement and your level of ability. In the beginning, you're usually really excited about a new role, something different, but your level of ability is fairly low. So at that point, what you need from a manager is someone who's going to kind of be walking alongside you. So that is someone who's going to check in. That's someone who's going to give you a little bit more of, okay, here are the 5 steps to get this thing done. That is typically how we do it. I'm going to check in and see how you're doing, just to make sure something hasn't been missed. Because when people are like, oh, I don't want to be a micromanager, so I'm just going to tell my people what to do and I'm going to step away. If someone's in that first situation, it feels more like you've been abandoned. So you feel like your manager isn't giving you attention when you need it. And the other person might be thinking, oh, I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want to be constantly checking in. At that phase of learning, it's actually really valuable. And one of the best questions you can ask is, once you have an understanding of that process, what phase are you in? Do you feel like you're really excited, but you have fairly low skills and you'd like me to be more of a check-in coach? Or are you really skilled at this, but you've just been doing it a long time, so you need me to be more of a cheerleader? Or do you feel like you love the work and you're an expert at it, so all you really need me to do is check in with you to make sure, are we moving in the right direction? Do you have any feedback for me? So now it's more like a partnership, and it's as you move through those phases. So sometimes when people are like, oh, I don't want to be a micromanager, they might actually be doing a disservice to their people if they're in a space where they're really needing that coach type mentality.
No, I appreciate that you went through those different through the different phases that a person goes through, because I'm even thinking about that like in like an affiliate marketing or like in the network marketing companies that I've been in, because you are right. I'm like, you hit it dead center when you said like there's the first part, like when you bring somebody in and they're new and maybe they've never done network marketing. I know like this is not like the necessarily the topic, but it's a very good relevant point that I'm like, hey, this applies to this too, is like when you're new to network marketing, you don't know what you're doing, or maybe you're from a different company, so you still know what you're doing, but in a sense it's a different company. So then when you're enrolled and then the enroller just leaves you, it very much creates that abandonment, because I've felt that too in like almost all of the network companies I've been in. And then it's like, no wonder why the MLMs get a bad name. It's like because you bring somebody in and then you just dump them, or you expect them to be, hey, you already know what you're doing. When reality is just what you said, like you're in that new beginning stage and you really should be asking them, hey, you seem like you've got this handled. Do you just need, like someone to help cheer you on? Do you think you've got a good role on this? Because that's immediately where my brain went to.
No, and that makes total sense, and it actually fits in with the topic for the day about fulfillment ROI, which I'll talk about what that is in a second. But one of the elements is energy. And if you think of it from an energy perspective, if you're new and you step into it, you've got a lot of energy, you've got a lot of excitement, but you're not exactly sure how to apply that energy to create some value. And so you take a step and you're like, was that the right step? And so you kind of look around, you need some validation that was the right activity. Now you get all the way to the other side of that curve and you've got the energy, you're excited and you know what to do. But then someone's like, oh, hey, by the way, what about, it's like they're forcing you to put the brakes on. And so you're actually wasting energy because that person's constantly checking in on you. At the beginning, that check-in actually helps you align that energy so you don't push the brakes because you're unsure. When you try and check in the other way, which is the micromanagement people talk about, that's when someone's like, hey, could you put the brakes on for a second because I want to talk to you? That's actually negative energy drain. It's a drag. It doesn't help them create flow. And so if you think it through energy, it kind of helps make sense. Like, oh yeah, I'm helping someone can maintain and focus that energy in the right direction, because without it, like you said, you feel abandoned. I don't know, did I do the right thing? And so you're exhausting energy wondering before you take the next step. Whereas before you could just be confidently walking, and if someone's like, here's the light switch, I'm gonna flip it on, just walk down this hall and then take a right. Now you know where to go. And it makes it so much easier.
Well, yeah, it definitely would. And then also it's like when you, it's almost like sometimes like the leader themselves are not confident, or they're unsure of themselves, or they have like the insecurity. And it's like, I've noticed that among the different leaders, not just like within the network marketing or like the MLMs, like people think that they're a scam. And it's like, no, they're not. It's a great business way of having money because you can earn more than the employees do, because they're not employees, but like you can earn more than those that you bring or that are above you. You can still earn more, but at the same time, it's like you've got to help them out, meet them where they are, so to speak, in that, like what you had said, to have that fulfillment within that for like the energy part of it. Because yeah, when you're new, it's like, it's exciting, like with anything, like even getting a new kitten, like it's exciting, it's new, but then they drop off if you're not helping them, if you're not guiding and leading them. And I think that's where people also like, hey, as a leader, you got to check yourself. Are you comfortable helping somebody else? Do you have your own stuff figured out? And that's one of the questions I was going to ask too, is who or what got you interested in management in the first place?
That's a great question and a fun story. Kind of part of my career path, I used to be a pastor. And so I led a congregation before, and fast forward, like probably about 8 years from that point, I'm in corporate America and I'm working in the purchasing department of a large medical supply company. And I'm enjoying it, rocking it, being a really good contributor. And they tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we just acquired another business last year. We're going to merge. could you take over this team? It's just two people, but could you kind of run it while we're in the midst of doing this and help us make it all make sense? I'm like, yeah, sure. I've led a congregation before. I've been a leader. I'm doing comfortable work here as a contributor. A manager is just kind of like the middle, right? So this is going to be super easy. Like, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 weeks in, I was a puddle of emotions on the floor. Like, I was like, I don't know if my people like me. Like, am I saying the right things? Am I asking? Are we doing too much? Am I supposed to be doing? I mean, it was like I was on a bridge that had 2 solid foundations, and all of a sudden I got to the middle, and we forgot to put down all the tiles. And I'm like walking around feeling uncomfortable, like I'm going to fall through into the icy waters beneath. That was the start of me being like, I don't understand why I can be so good on both sides of this and so terrible right here in the middle. Why is that the case? Because management should just be like a blend of contribution and leadership, right? It's the middle of the process.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
And it turns out it's not. It's a very different skill set. And actually, the people who are your best managers are probably not going to be the people who are your best contributors or who would be your best leaders, because it's a different set of skills that are being brought to the table. Wow. So it's been 15 years of having that personal experience and then saying, what the heck is going on here? So I've read hundreds of books. I've gone into consulting. I've worked with hundreds of companies. And that has always been one of the linchpins of struggles when an organization doesn't have clarity around management, and they either treat it like the gold star for being in the business. It's like, well, you've been here 10 years, we're going to make you a manager. Or you're a really standout rock star contributor, we're going to make you a manager. Or, you know what, we think you're going to be a future leader, so we're going to train you in the JV league of leaders, which is managers. That we do a disservice to it, and it shows up because they're actually the secret sauce of that sustained success is getting your management layer correct. And so when I see organizations nowadays gutting like middle management, there are times where that makes sense because they really don't need that many layers. There's also many times where it's actually that's what's going to cause the problem down the road, because they've just cut out what actually should be what's making them work.
So if you don't mind me asking, what exactly is the managers like at the company that you're talking about, like for like the management and then like the middle management? Because I'm not familiar with like the whole, I always think of it as a pyramid. Like, that's why I'm like, I immediately think of like that when people sit there and say that MLMs are a pyramid scheme, I'm like, no, they're not, because you can earn more than the person that brought you in. So that's why I'm like, I'm trying to think of it, because I know like there's the employees level, which they're employees essentially. They're not like the CEO or the founder of the company. But I'm like in between. I'm like, I know that there's a supervisor. I know that there's a manager, but I don't understand the different levels. And maybe somebody else doesn't understand it either.
Yeah, I think so. I make a distinction between there's a role and there's an activity. So when I say leader, I'm not like leadership is different than that. So leadership is something anyone can engage in. So just to kind of go with the activities first, leadership is about moving someone from point now to point next, from point A to point B. Yeah. All about leaders are people that have followers. So leadership is all about activating people to move to something different. Management is all about, like I mentioned before, it's activation and optimization. It's say, okay, we have a plan. Let's make sure that that plan is working, and then let's focus on making it efficient. And then contributors or contribution is all about actually creating value. So whatever it is that you offer as a service or a product, it's only the contributors, the contribution side of things, that are actually creating that value. Managers and leaders are all there as contingent roles to help you do that. So the biggest distinction between those two is, I say, leaders define the new, managers refine the now. So it's a focus issue.
That is helpful. So now I'm thinking I know exactly like what you're talking about. So then the other ones that you mentioned, like I was immediately thinking of like the worker bees in the hive. Yep. They're the ones that are doing like all the major work. Meanwhile, like the management's like, okay, I need you to do this, and over here, what can we do better at this? So that way we've got more of our time and energy going on this plan, where the leader's like, this is where we were going to take you. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for helping with that, because just where my brain is at right now, that was very good, helpful picture in my mind. So this way I'm like, hey, now I know exactly where you're going with this, because that does help. So there's like the manager gap, which is like the role, and then the management gap, which is the work. So that'd be like the worker bees type deal, like what I just was thinking of. Or
Yeah,
is that going to be different?
that steps like a little bit between that and the teamwork gap. So the role gap is this: what we're doing now is we're defining what it is that people are doing. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times when people are in manager roles, they came out of a contributor role, and so they lean into, oh well, that's how I created value in the past. That's what people told me I was doing. And that's so when they start to get anxious, they lean into becoming a contributor again. So giving them clarity that as a manager, your role is to refine the now, not to carry out the now. So you are more of a multiplier versus an adder of value. You make other people's value more valuable because you add efficiencies, all of those things. But you're also not a leader yet in that sense from the organization. Now you can do leadership, which is helping people move, like lead a project. But leaders in an organization are all about the vision. It's kind of like with the bee analogy. Where should we, you know what? The seasons have changed. We should move the hive to a new location. That's what a leader's looking for. They're looking up and out to say, where do we go from here? Whereas the manager's saying, how do we run this hive as efficiently as possible? Now, if you're constantly trying to do both of those, one, you get, I think I call it corporate whiplash. You're constantly shifting, and it's really hard for people to know what are you up to in that particular moment. And so like that's the manager gap is all about articulating that. So it's like how that moves into the management gap, the activities, like, okay, great. I know that a manager is different from a leader. What am I doing? Okay, how do I do management? What does that even look like? So I've got a model that I call EPIC management, and it stands for environment, performance, identity, and communication. And it basically lays out the what, the who, and the how of management. And so that's really where we get into the activities of a manager are to set up the environment and to measure performance. Because it's really hard for everyone wants to be successful.
Well, yeah, everybody does.
If you don't know what it is that you're there to do, and you have no metric or measurement of how you're doing. So if I don't know what management does at my company, and I don't have a way of knowing if I'm being successful, it's really hard for me to feel good about being a manager. And that's one of the things I think we do a disservice in a lot of organizations is we don't help our managers articulate what their role is and help them feel successful in it.
Well, and I would agree with you from like what I've learned about, because I've never been like in corporate that I'm aware of. I've always been, I guess, I don't know, like for me, when I think about corporate, all I'm thinking about is people that are at their desks, like in a call center, taking calls, and that's all I'm thinking of. Maybe that's not corporate. I've only had one job like that, and it was a whole different picture. I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with that. I've worked in a call center. I was gonna say, so then I'm thinking, would your book help like outline these different things that you're talking about? Like, because the metrics are huge. Like even me, like with being a sole entrepreneur in my own business, I'm like, I am so glad that I had the intelligence to think way back then, like 7 years ago, to start my own list of like, not just like to-dos, but it has really helped me figure out how I lead and how I'm doing things, like my energy levels. Like in the morning, we don't want me in the morning. We don't want me before 11 a.m. I'm there, but I'm not fully present where I'm ready to go, can take on the world. And like, I've figured that out because I've tracked that. I've also tracked like where, like being sick, for an example, takes me out for 2 weeks. Doesn't matter if it's cold or what it is, but I'm like, that's where I've been able to measure. So I'm able to see those metrics. So in your book, do you have like a list of like, hey, if you want to manage your team, this should be helpful. If you're a leader, like this is what you should be measuring. Is it all laid out in your book?
Yeah. And so after I get into each of those gaps, the last chapter of each of them is all about the application. So I basically use the analogy of if there's a gap, we need to bridge that gap. And so I give you a bunch of what I call planks. So these are different activities that you can engage in to help bridge that gap. So if you're like, oh, wow, our organization really doesn't value managers in the right way. We need to be better at articulating that. I give you different ways that you can go about doing it. Or if you step into that manager role and you're like, oh, I need to do a better job at the management activities because that's my new accountability, I'll help you understand that. And then the same thing for doing teamwork and how do you engage your people.
I like that idea because that would be extremely helpful because like I said, like I'm an outsider on the how to like do like how corporate works. Like I said, I really truly don't know about it. I just know that a lot of people that I know that are in corporate, they're being burnt out. They're being worn out because they get so frustrated. And then I know like people have talked about micromanaging, and then there's been people that have talked about all these different aspects. Like they don't understand that they need a break, that they need this and they need that. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, the only thing I do know is 100% true for anyone that's living. You're living. You got a pulse. Is that we all want to be seen, heard, and valued. That's the only thing. And I think that that's the main issue that's going on in corporate. You know, like if you really took a real look at like what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And that's actually, so for the theme for the day, Fulfillment ROI, what that is and where that came from, like that's been the through line for my entire life. Everything I've done, I've wanted to be fulfilled, and I've wanted other people to be fulfilled. And I'm sort of a nerd, so I've got a really analytical mind. I like to build systems. I like to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. So I was sitting, this is during COVID, and just thinking like, what is it? Like, what does it mean? Like, okay, we all get this like global pause. What is going on when people feel fulfilled? Because it's such a unique personal journey. And
it is.
I'm surprised to find, actually, I think the mechanics behind it are relatively simple. So what it is it's the energy we invest in something and the value it produces for us. If that's a positive return on investment, an ROI, net positive, that's a fulfilling experience. And so if we are unfulfilled, one of two things is going on. Either it's taking more energy to get done, or it's creating less value. And so we look into what's happened. If it's shifted, we ask what's changed. So you're working in an organization where you put in all this energy, you do all this stuff, and then you just get like, you're not seen. You're not heard. You even used that you're not valued. Yeah. All of a sudden, your energy is still up here, but the value starts to drop because people just aren't seeing you. And there's a point where you're like, this isn't fulfilling anymore. And that's exactly what's happening. Or at the same time, maybe you have something you really, really care about, but you didn't build really great systems at the beginning. And so as you scale, it starts to take a little bit more energy. You got more on your plate of the activities you don't really like. And all of a sudden you're at a point like, this just isn't fulfilling anymore. I don't understand what's going on. It's just one of those two things. And so when I do it in coaching, I love assessments. So I use a bunch of assessments, mostly because I think they're a great start of a conversation, not the end of one. And then we just unpack that and we just say, where are you not fulfilled? Then we tease it apart to say, where's the energy input? Where's the value output? And then we just tweak it a little bit over time. And all of a sudden you could be doing almost the exact same thing and feel totally different about it. And we just do that over and over again. And you start walking fulfillment into your life.
Awesome. I like that because oddly enough, before you and I were talking, my husband, he's like, well, he hasn't done much in life and he was feeling bad about it. And I'm like, he's like, well, you've done stuff. Like, he's like, my greatest accomplishment has been you and all the kids we got. And I told him, I says, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, you've got your diploma in hypnotherapy, that you've gone to college. You've got the Maxwell leadership. You've got all these things. And I'm like, no, I says, those are just achievements. I says, my greatest accomplishment has been you and all the kids. I says, that's what fulfills me. I'm like, that's truly what like fulfills me. And it's like, I'm trying to find that in the work that I'm doing now, because it's just like what you said. I'm like, some things light me up. Other things, don't ask me to I built my website. I've done that. I have a virtual assistant now to help me out. Cause I'm like, I'd rather watch paint dry. I'm just,
yeah.
It does not light me up. I love talking to people. I love helping people like figure things out. And so that's where I'm like, okay, so that's the fulfillment issue that it's just like, I understand that now with all of that. And like being able to measure that, like how can one measure like that this is something that really fulfills you. And like you said, you use those different assessments. And has that been helpful for your clients that you've worked with then?
Yeah, it has. I've got one I'll highlight because I think it's really clear where it provides value is Patrick Lencioni's got a relatively new one that's about 5 years old called Working Genius. And it's actually, so it's a cognitive assessment. And what that means is it's all about where do you like to show up in the tasking of activities. And so basically there's like 6 steps, 3 phases. So you have ideation, activation, and implementation. And that's broken down into 2 phases in each of those. I'm wired as someone who is very much on the ideation side. So I'm called a wonder inventive because those are my 2 geniuses, which is also called a creative dreamer. So I am lit up just talking to people about the what ifs, the how could we, how about, why do we. I explore all the edges. I can come up with solutions. And then I'm just like slowly, as we get closer to implementation, I'm more and more like, this is terrible. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Let's go create something new. And then hopefully I can hand it off to someone. But there are other people out there that love to pick up all the pieces that someone else has created and build that puzzle. And what it does on the Fulfillment ROI, it's a fantastic tool for understanding where is your energy profile as you step into the different phases of work, especially as a solopreneur. The saddest part of it is you will have to do all 6 until you figure out how to partner. And what that basically means is you're going to always move at the speed of your slowest gear in that energy profile. And if you don't offload that at some point, it doesn't matter how the rest of them are doing, it's just going to catch up with you and you're going to burn out.
And I appreciate that very much. And the reason why I started laughing, in case you were wondering, I was like, you pinpointed me. I'm exactly like you on that of like, I like people, I like ideas, I'm very creative, I'm very much a visionary leader. But when it comes to like the application of like, hey, we got to do this, I'm like, yep, that's where I'm my slowest.
Yeah.
It does not light me up.
It's okay. You're not wired for it. And that's not to say like,
no.
It's a get out of jail free card to say I'm never going to have to do tasking work.
No, I still have to.
Find partnerships to do that. Because there are people out there that get lit up by doing that work. And it's actually also a great tool. I use it for teams to describe the difference between the platinum rule and the golden rule. In that, the golden rule, treat everyone the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule, treat other people the way they want to be treated. I, as a wonder inventive, if a project comes up and it's be like, we have to like a totally new process that no one's ever done before. We have to figure out how the heck this thing works and make it happen. And someone needs to just tell us what this looks like. I would love that project. If I had someone on my team, I was like, wow, Robin's really been killing it. I'm going to reward her with a really great project. And it turns out that you're actually wired the opposite of what you said you are. And you really love the details. You like it when there's a checklist and there's a process to follow. And I handed you that project because I wanted to treat you like I wanted to be treated. I would drain your cup so fast. You would be like, does Matt hate me? Is he punishing? Did I do something wrong? And I think I'm being helpful. This gives me the language and the lens to treat people the way they want to be treated and be like, hey, Robin, this is a project. It's got a lot of like ideation, invention. Based on your profile, I don't think you'd like this. Is that accurate? Because again, it's descriptive, not prescriptive. I should ask questions and be curious and not pigeonhole you. And you're like, yeah, that would suck. And I'd be like, cool, I'm going to keep it for myself because I would love it. And then here's this project for a process. It's going to take 3 weeks and you just have to follow these 512 steps. And it's going to be hugely impactful to the business, but you got to follow everyone in this order. And if you were wired that way, you'd be like, oh, that sounds fantastic. My next 3 weeks are planned. I know exactly what I'm doing. It's going to provide value. And I just have to do 512 things in a row. And I would be like, if you assigned me that task, I would be like, and where's the door? Like, because you're either going to fire me or I'm going to walk out of it. One of the 2 things is going to happen.
No, I'm enjoying this conversation so much. So before we close our show today, what is the best way for our audience to get in contact with you? Because I'm just thinking like this is extremely beneficial.
You can find me most active on LinkedIn. I post 5 to 6 days a week. So I'm always on there if you want to come find me, just like linkedin.com/in/mattley. IPNadvisors.com is the website. for my company if you want to, take it all the way to doing some work together. And if you want to check out the book, you go to manageyourgaps.com. You can even download the first 4 chapters for free and just, give it a read.
Awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate this very much because now I learned some things that I did not know of. So I really appreciate it very much.
That's awesome.
So I want to make sure that everyone remembers to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast.
That's all for now, folks. Thanks for listening. Thank you for fun. Tap that follow button. Subscribe. Quack, quack. Bye-bye. Wow, next time. Now you got it.